The traitors face their biggest test, and a long-awaited banishment finally happens. We knew that in the mission from the previous episode, the Faithfuls had the chance to stop the traitors from murdering. The only thing that needed to happen was for no player to take any of the shields that were underneath the statues. What we also knew was that if they could murder, Colton would be high on Lisa's list of candidates to go for. Colton's latest banishment target was Lisa, but I was wondering how long would it be before he went beyond his conversation with Dorinda, Moira, Robbar and Jam Jam. One thing we got clarity on very early was that everyone arrived at breakfast, meaning no one took the shield. I for one was very surprised, especially given how Jam Jam was in tears a couple of missions ago. It's not something previous players would have resisted, as some players from previous seasons seemed very individualistic. I think I was just as disappointed as the traitors were, because I wanted to see who the traitors would choose. I really thought someone would sneakily take one of the shields. At this point, I was already trying to do the math on how many players would end up at the beginning of the final episode. We had two Faithfuls with differing game plans and different targets. First there was Colton, who was honing in on Lisa. Colton suggested to Dorinda that she should watch Lisa. He later decided to spread the word and told Natalie about his theory about Lisa. Then while in the car with Dorinda, Robbar and Tara, Colton mentioned Lisa again. He even did the hugely popular thing a Faithful likes to do by saying, "If I'm murdered, not at breakfast, this player did it." Later, Colton tried to make a deal with Lisa, with the deal being Colton protects Lisa at the round table and Lisa protects Colton in the turret. I couldn't take this little plan of his seriously. Did he really expect Lisa to say, "Yeah, okay"? Or was he trying to gauge her reaction? Johnny was the other Faithful with a different game plan. Johnny decided that his game plan was to get a group of 8 trustworthy Faithfuls so that group can control the votes at the round table. In theory, that was something, but would it be a good plan, and would those players want to participate? The list of these so-called Faithfuls was funny to me when it was said who they were. With Johnny, the others were Candice, Eric, Kristen, Robbar, Stephen, Mark, Moira and Tara. Not quite the 8 Faithfuls Johnny wanted. What was intriguing to me was how trusting some of the Faithfuls are of Candice and Robbar. That's really good for their game. Candice seems to have the trust of Johnny, Kristen and Tara, while Robbar has Moira and probably Colton and Ron. What was also clear, amongst a few of those that Johnny was shown to discuss his plan with, was that there was suspicion on Colton being a traitor. Before the round table, Johnny was trying to gather votes against Colton, and I just wasn't convinced that this was going to be a success due to who would be unlikely to vote that way. Seeing Ron play chess with Robbar made me wonder if Ron had been more social than I previously thought and what was actually shown. I had speculated if Ron was being ostracised or just choosing to not interact with others, but it's probably neither. Maybe he just hung out with a small subset of people and those were the ones he was willing to talk to, but we weren't shown those other interactions once Portia was banished. Ron was odds-on favourite to be banished, but I was getting the feeling that it might not be a foregone conclusion. The players were taken to a cabin in the woods, a very creepy cabin. Inside the cabin they needed to solve a series of cryptic clues that would give them a name of someone in the gravesite. 2 players would need to run out the cabin and stand next to correct gravestones within 30 seconds. There were 6 messages to solve, and for each one solved correctly, $3,000 would be added to the prize pot. One of the grave sites had 2 shields, and going for them would negate the gold they could retrieve. In another surprising move regarding the shields, there was an agreement to not go for the shields, though not all of the players raised their hands to agree to it. Despite the hesitancy by some, no one took the shield. With only one pair standing next to an incorrect gravesite, $15,000 was added to the prize pot. There was so much silence after Alan gave them the room. I wasn't sure who was going to speak up and what direction their suspicions would be aimed at. Was someone going to take a punt at Colton, or were people still sticking to Ron? Ron was unsurprisingly in the firing line. I liked how Ron swung it back on Colton in regards to Faithfuls taking a swing and a miss at who they later find out is a Faithful. I think Ron has been held to a different standard compared to Colton, and it's clear to Ron. Kristen was the one that took the baton and honed in on Colton. Johnny chimed in too, and so did Eric and Maura. Ron actually started saying his goodbyes before anyone wrote anyone's name down. One by one, players were starting to believe Ron was a faithful. At this point, I was very confused as to who the players were actually going to vote for. Then came the moment when Colton saw the opportunity to take a swing at the round table, right next to him and in Lisa's direction. I think it was partially due to self-preservation, as the players were wondering who else they could look at outside of Ron. I was disappointed in Lisa at the round table. Just saying I'm a faithful doesn't cut it. Lisa needed to come up with a better defense. It's not like she didn't know Colton was onto her. Lisa tried to explain her vote for Portia, which I knew would be an issue when she did it. What on earth was she thinking that night? I don't even know the Housewives' lore or who is on what show, but what I have gathered is that you don't outwardly show you're trying to get a housewife out. I felt like Colton was trying to goad Lisa the whole time, trying to get some sort of reaction out of her, whether that's Lisa the traitor or Lisa effing Rinna. I thought that Lisa had an opportunity to jump on the bandwagon against Colton and put forward something that would turn it back on him. This would be less messy than murdering him at night, though Rob R might have something to say about that. The votes were close, with 4 for Colton, 5 for Lisa, and Ron was banished with 6 votes. With Candice voting for Ron in 3 consecutive roundtables, I was wondering who she would pivot to on the next one. Would Colton be her next target? Rob R's voting dilemma found him choosing to vote for Lisa. Things were gonna be awkward. While we didn't get the awkward meeting in the turret, we got it in the kitchen instead. Candice and Lisa were not impressed with him. The Traitors got their second murder in plain sight assignment, which was going to take place in front of everyone at the banquet Alan was hosting. One of the Traitors needed to wear an amulet, which instantly ruled out Rob R. Lisa took on the responsibility of wearing the amulet. The first faithful to touch the amulet will be cursed and murdered. It feels like the first murder in plain sight was only an episode ago. At least that's what this episode rollout has made it feel like to me. I'm not sure how I feel about multiple murder in plain sights in one season, or at least they should be a little more spaced out through the season. Would Lisa succeed? Who would touch the amulet? And would Lisa survive the next roundtable? They are very Lisa-centric questions, but the next episode will be pivotal to how much longer Lisa remains in the game.